Oh God, here we go again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Cricket Corner podcast with me, Vatsal Vora, as we review the second day's play here at the World Test Championship final between India and Australia, coming to you from the Oval. Well, things need to be done, and apparently, India are struggling to do their part in this Test match. Here at the end of second day's play, India are 151 for a loss of 5 wickets and they trail Australia by 318 runs with 5 wickets remaining and another 118 runs just to avoid the follow on. Before we talk about the Indian collapse, let's start by talking about Australia because they have put up a massive total on the board in their first innings. They were bowled out for 469 runs. They started with an overnight score of 327 for the loss of 3 wickets. Yes, they just added 142 runs and lost 7 wickets, but I feel like 469 is still a mammoth total. Let's be honest, 327 for 3 at the end of the first day's play with Travis Head well above 100, Steve Smith on 95. It felt like Australia could get a really big score, something a lot more than just 469. Well, I'm saying just 469 even though that is a massive total in itself, but it felt like Australia could do a lot more with those two sets batsmen at the crease and with the likes of Cam Green and Alex Carey still around to come, but it didn't happen that way and they were just bundled out for 469. At the end of their innings, Travis Head scored 163. Steve Smith did bring up his 100. He scored 121 runs and a valuable contribution from their wicketkeeper Alex Carey, who made 48 before he was dismissed by Ravindra Jadeja and was given plum LBW. There is no doubt that Australia deserve a lot more credit for their innings. 469 is a massive total and it would take something special from Indian side to come back into the test match and post a score in that region and try and take some kind of lead. But I would like to talk about the Indian bowling here as well, because to restrict them to just 142 runs and taking the 7 wickets which were remaining, it's a really fantastic achievement after seeing how bogged down they were towards the end of day one. Credit to Mohammad Siraj, he kept on bowling with his heart out, with his heart on his sleeves, and he kept on pitching the ball short. This is how he got Travis Head down I think was it down the leg side. He took a nick of through his gloves probably and into the hands of Shrikar Bharat. Shardul Thakur taking the wicket of Steve Smith and Mohammad Shami also chipping there with a wicket of Cam Green. So it was a really good performance from India let's compare their performance on day one, and it was a much better performance in the first session at day two, restricting them to 469 runs. But then it felt like though that total could have been avoided as well. At one point in time I thought Australia might not even get 470 odd, which they did, and might just be bundled out for around 450 or 440. But then credit to Alex Carey, he hung in with the tail, scored 48 runs, was trying to counter attack, was trying to get the odd boundaries. He did hit a 6 as well, and he was trying to hang in with the tail, but apparently that didn't happen. Mitchell Starc scored just 5. Pat Cummins tried to hang in there for 9. Lyon scored 9 as well, and Scott Boland was not out at 1 in the end. But yeah, it was a good effort from the Indian bowlers, but I think the damage was already done as far as the Australian batting is concerned. And when you are 327 for the loss of 3 wickets, you expect the likes of Travis Head and Steve Smith to go all guns blazing, and they kind of did during the early stages of the first session. But once Travis Head was unfortunately dismissed off Mohammad Siraj down the leg side, it was just free fall from that end. Steve Smith was looking really good, but he chopped on a square cut into the stumps of Shardul Thakur. I think the most important wicket that India took, apart from that of Head and Smith, because obviously those wickets are crucial because they were batting at a score of well above 100 runs, but still I am quite certain and I'm quite positive about this statement which I'm going to make right now, that the most important wicket that the Indians took was that of Cameron Green. Because yes, you have just dismissed Travis Head, you have dismissed him for 163 and the score is 361. But then comes Cameron Green and he's been in some exceptional form. Yes, he had a great Indian Premier League. He scored 100 in the IPL. He came into the IPL with 100 in the Test match at Ahmedabad in the fourth and final Test match in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. So he was coming with some form behind his back. And you then dismissed him just for 6 runs, which I am sure Australians would have wanted a lot more from Cameron Green. And seeing him walk off the field and into the pavilion for a score of just 6 runs was a huge bonus for the Indian bowling. And like they always do, wickets always come in pairs when it comes to the Test match, and particularly when the Indian seamers are on fire, because you got Travis Head early, then moments later you get Cameron Green. After that you get Steve Smith for relatively quickly as well, and then all of a sudden within a span of just 15 or 20 minutes you are already into the tail. You have Mitchell Starc coming in, Pat Cummins, Nathan Lyon and Scott Boland. So yes, India did really well to claim those quick early wickets into the day's play, and the wicket of Cameron Green was like that barrier between a huge score and a mediocre score. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying 469 is a mediocre score in any span of imagination, but still I think that Cameron Green wicket really opened the floodgates as far as the Indian bowling is concerned, and that very wicket was a chink in the armor of the Australian batting lineup. And once he was dismissed, the wickets kept on tumbling at regular intervals, which saw Australia just put on 469 with adding just 142 runs to their overnight score. As I mentioned before, Mohammad Siraj was the pick of the bowlers as far as the Indians are concerned. 4 wickets for him, 4 for 108. Yes, he's conceded quite a lot of runs, but then you expect a bowler to concede above 100 runs when you bowl 28, 29, 30 overs. 2 wickets for Mohammad Shami as well. He picked up the all-important wicket of Cameron Green, as I mentioned, and he picked up the wicket of Manas Labuschagne yesterday as well. 2 wickets for Shardul Thakur, two really key wickets as well. David Warner early on yesterday, and he picked up the crucial wicket of Steve Smith today as well. 1 solitary wicket for Ravindra Jadeja, but that was another crucial wicket as well, getting Alex Carey LBW when Carey was looking like he could take the Australian innings to another level and post a score well above 500 runs. But credit to Ravindra Jadeja as well. Shout out to Akshar Patel as well, the substitute running out Mitchell Starc. So yeah, 469, and it would take something really big, marvelous for the Indians to come out and get those runs quickly and go unscathed. But unfortunately for the Indians, that did not happen. As we mentioned before, 151 for the loss of 5 wickets India already in their first innings. And how often have we seen this happen? Like, I'm getting bored about talking this same recurring issue which has been hampering the Indian side from the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and I'm going to mention it and talk about it yet again, just like an old Indian soap opera which keeps on repeating and churning out those same episodes. If you are a fan of the Indian soap opera, you know which show I am here talking about, and that is the recurring issue of India's top order / middle order collapsing. Once again, we have witnessed that very same issue. The top order and the middle order is just not giving India enough runs to battle these mammoth test sides, to battle against these fierce bowling attacks, to battle against Australia. And once again, we have seen another batting collapse as far as the top 4 are concerned. You usually expect India to perform well in the opening stages of the game because they have some great batsmen at the top of their innings, the likes of Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, Cheteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli. The 4 of them, you cannot get better top 4 than these 4 in World Test cricket. That's the certainty. But once again, those 4 batsmen have not scored more than 15 runs. Rohit Sharma 15, Shubman Gill 13, Cheteshwar Pujara 14, Virat Kohli 14. Yes, similar kind of scores. You get in, you get a start, but then you lose the wicket. And the way Shubman Gill and Cheteshwar Pujara were dismissed, it was so difficult to see those wickets being an Indian fan, because it felt like they're giving their wicket away in a kind of a cheap manner. It's not like the bowler is doing his bit. Yes, he is doing his bit. He's bowling in the right line and length. But then it's a batsman's duty to perform and, to play according to the delivery. But the way Shubman Gill and Cheteshwar Pujara were dismissed were really disappointing to see. Shubman Gill leaving a Scott Poland delivery and was cleaned up. Very similar delivery bowled by Cameron Green. Once again, Cheteshwar Pujara deciding to leave that delivery, just nips back in slightly and takes his wicket as well. Takes the off stump, that is. Both the batsmen dismissed in such a similar manner. Rohit Sharma was LBW plumb in front by Pat Cummins. The ball was so plumb that he didn't even decide to review that decision. And Virat Kohli was dismissed by Mitchell Starc, bowling a little short of the length, and the ball just took off, taking Virat Kohli's, I think it nicked off his thumb into the hands of second slip where Steve Smith was standing. India lost their first wicket at 30, second was at 30 as well. 20 runs later, it was 3 wickets down, 50 for 3, and 21 runs later, it was 4 wickets down and it was 71 for 4. Ajinkya Rahane could have been dismissed for a score in that same region as well. He was given out LBW of Pat Cummins, but when he reviewed that decision, Pat Cummins had bowled a no ball, so it didn't matter whether it was out or not out. But when the Hawkeye showed, it was plumb in front as well. Pat Cummins bowled 4 no balls today. It's unlikely to see such a world-class bowler bowled 4 no balls, that too in a test match when you're not under any sorts of pressure. Even when you have scored 469 runs, when your team has scored so many runs, it doesn't make sense you bowl these many no balls. And one of those no balls costed you a wicket. So I don't know what's wrong with Pat Cummins there. I'm sure it's just a one-off thing. But 5 wickets down, and it could have been a lot worse, as I mentioned, if Ajinkya Rahane had been dismissed as well. But he's still out there at the crease. He's so far scored 29 runs of 71 deliveries, scored 4 boundaries along the way, and had a great partnership with his Chennai Super Kings teammate in Ravindra Jadeja. Hadn't Ravindra Jadeja batted today like the way he did, India could have been almost out of the game by the end of day 2. But unfortunately for Australia, Ravindra Jadeja just keeps on doing Ravindra Jadeja things. 48 runs of 51 deliveries, a typical counter-attacking innings by Jadeja himself. It felt like the Travis Head kind of an innings where he just came out to bat and he was just scoring runs freely. That was probably Ravindra Jadeja before he was dismissed by Nathan Lyon towards the end of day's play. Jadeja and Rahane adding 71 runs of 100 deliveries for the 5th wicket, which has propelled India to 151. Otherwise, it could have been a much, much lower score. But once again, let's talk about the Indian middle order batting, because once again, India have struggled to get those runs early on into their innings, and once again, it is India relying on their lower middle order and lower order to get them a few runs to make them escape from the troubles which the middle order has already created for them. And once again, they relied heavily on Jadeja. Now they are going to rely on Rahane, Shardul Thakur and Shrikar Bharat, who is already at the wicket now, to give them some valuable runs towards the latter stages. But I'm not quite sure how things are going to pan out here, because earlier when the top order and the middle order didn't perform, you had the likes of Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar Patel and Rishabh Pant to an extent to rely on to give you runs. But now you already lost Jadeja, you haven't picked Ravi Ashwin, Pant is injured, so where are the runs going to come? Akshar Patel was a substitute, he's not going to bat. So from where are those runs going to come from? As far as the Indians are concerned, You are relying on Rahane to give you runs. Don't get me wrong, Rahane is a wonderful test match player. He is a joy to watch when he's in full swing, that is. Some of his cover drives today was excellent, as I mentioned. So you're relying on him to get you runs. Well, okay, you can rely on him. But then you are relying on Shardul Thakur and Shrikar Bharat. Now, Shardul Thakur is capable of giving you some quick fires, 30, 40, 50 here and there. But he has not played test cricket for quite some time now. So I'm not sure how hot or cold he's going to come in when he eventually comes out to bat. I think one wicket falls and you are into the tail, that is, which starts with Shardul Thakur, and then you have Umesh Yadav, Mohammad Siraj and Mohammad Shami. Capable batsmen, yes, but they are not Ashwin, Akshar Patel kind of capable. If you understand what I mean, that is. But on the other hand, it is a very good opportunity for the likes of Rahane and KS Bharat to score some runs. There were talks about the selection of KS Bharat and whether he should be picked or the team goes with Ishan Kishan for the wicket-keeping position. But the captain Rohit Sharma and the Indian management have backed Shrikar Bharat just because he played test match cricket. He's played 4 test matches. He was part of the Border Gavaskar series, but he didn't get a lot of opportunities to come out there and show his batting skills. Yes, he made some 20, 25, 30 runs here and there, but he's not had pressure on him to score runs, and this is going to be a wonderful barometer to see how well he can soak that pressure and contribute towards the Indian batting. And if he can do that, I'm sure he can cement his place into the test match squad until Rishabh Pant eventually comes back from his injury. And don't get me wrong, Shrikar Bharat is no slouch with the bat as well. He's had close to 4,000 runs in first class cricket. He's had a triple century to his name, so he can bat. It's just a matter of him showing that he has the capability of playing these quicks on the international level, and I back him to do that. But he has to stick around with Ajinkya Rahane and bat for the majority of the day, because if India have any chance of pulling this game back, they have to bat for the entirety of day 3, or at least 90 or 80% of the third day's play to get closer to Australia's 469 runs. They have roughly 80 overs, 85 overs to bat tomorrow. And if Rahane and Bharat can survive the first session tomorrow, take the game to the second session unscathed, the sun is out, the batting conditions will get better, and they can probably still do something for their side. 118 to avoid follow-on, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. That should be achievable. I think 118 is something India will get, but I'm not sure how close to 469 they are going to get. And let's hope that doesn't happen. But what if Rahane or Bharat lose their wicket cheaply early on in the second session? Because it feels like, earlier in the first session, but it feels like the ball is starting to have a little bit of turn in it here and there. You saw the wicket of Ravindra Jadeja where Nathan Lyon just pitching it further up the wicket, and there was a hint of movement off the pitch. Classical off spinner for the left-hander, ball leaving the batsman out, and Jadeja just trying to get there, reach to the ball, and just takes the nick and finds first slip. So there is a bit of spin in the wicket now. That's the reason why India are going to miss Ashwin in the second innings as well, because when Australia come out to bat on day 4 or towards the latter stages of day 3, the ball is going to spin. But unfortunately for India, they have got one spinner. Once again, why Ashwin is a major miss as far as the Indians are concerned. And is this decision going to hamper their chances of winning the World Test Championship final? Well, I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, Ashwin has been a major miss with the ball. And with India 151 for 5, he is apparently a major miss with the bat as well. And so is Akshar Patel. But yeah, hopes are panned out on Rahane and Bharat to take India out of this sticky situation. Should they bat for a session and a half, India should be in a decent position. But still, you are 151 for 5 and you're trailing by 318 runs. So as things stands, things don't look good for India. But hey, you never know. Test cricket has its own beauty. You never can predict what happens next in the test match, just like you cannot predict how the weather will be at the Oval tomorrow. We'll be having another episode of the review tomorrow here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you are listening. Make sure you are liking, sharing, subscribing on YouTube. Make sure you are giving me those 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcast. For the time being, this is me, Vatsal Vora, signing off after a dreadful watch of Indian batting collapse. But hey, things need to be done. Ciao for now.